Hi, everybody. Welcome to a blustery Pittsburgh afternoon. We ask for a moment to acknowledge those traditional lands of those who came before and celebrate those who are here today in what is known in the present day as the Greater Pittsburgh region. The Erie, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, made up of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Seneca, Tuscarora, and Cayuga. Kaskaskia, Lenape, Massawomek, Mississauga, Osage, Shawanokie, Shawnee, Susquehannock, Wyandot, Yuchi, and the pre-European contact cultures of the Adena, Hopewell, and Monongahela. I thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the fourth webinar talking about our fourth selection in the Expand the Canon series, the first of 2022. We will be discussing today Angelina Weld Grimke's Rachel. It was written in 1916. It is Black love, Black joy, but we will discuss more about that. I would like to introduce my panelists, if I may, and I have lost their biographies. Hold on, I found them again. Joining us first is Hope Anthony. She is a dancer, singer, actor, and educator from the Iron City. She went to Montour High School. She's a proud member of Actors Equity Association, represented by the Talent Group, and an alumna of Point Park University's Conservatory of Performing Arts. She trained at Rosalind Kenneth and Karen Prunzik Dance Studios. Her love of dance started at age 5. She told me I'm not supposed to say this part, but I am so going to. When she popped in a VHS of Cats, the London cast particularly, and learned the choreography in her Tigger Halloween costume. Hope has performed at various venues, from the back of semi-trucks to Clipper Fleets to the Benedum Center. Stage credits include Zuzu in Dance Nation, Rachel in The Perfect Wedding, Aisha Price in Byhalia, Mississippi, Josephine in Big Fish, and Mona Stangley in The Best Little Whorehouse. You can find her on screen in NFL Super Bowl commercials, Are You Covered?, UPMC, Eating Ice Cream and Nestle Drumsticks anniversary video, Scolding a Goat in an Aspirin LLC commercial, and repping her city for Visit Pittsburgh. If you would like to take classes with and from Hope, she is on the faculty at Dance Inc. and Carnegie and the Artistic Education Associate at Attack Theater. And yes, her classes are all about opening your mind and heart and letting the music take you away, all while staying grounded and connected. Our next panelist, Linda Haston, is also a professional Actors Equity actress, singer, teaching artist, and directed. She has directed and or performed for the last 22 years with local professional companies, including Off the Wall, Quantum, Bricolage, New Horizons, City Theater, Pittsburgh Public, PICT, and Prime Stage. Some favorite performances include Irene Page in Bubbling Brown Sugar, starring Vivian Reed, Lily Ann Green and Lynn Nottage's Crumbs from the Table of Joy, Jeanette in City Theater's Crowned. She has directed and or performed to great success from 2008 to 2018 at Off the Wall Theater. She has performed her acclaimed one-woman show, Mother Lode, written by Off the Wall's artistic director, Virginia Wall Groinert, in Rep and Off-Broadway in February in 2018. Sojourner was her main stage directing debut with Prime Stage Theater, having last assisted directed on the production of Diary of Anne Frank. As an education director, she leads many of Prime Stage Theater's educational programs, including the Literacy in Action, ACT, SHUN, program using theater to assist teachers in urban and rural schools to improve their students' literacy and leadership skills. She is also a board member at Pittsburgh New Works Festival, Off the Wall Productions, and Front Porch Theatricals. And finally, and not forgotten in any way, shape, or form, our director, Racine Singletary, is a Baltimore native, born to a Brooklyn native and a Jamaican immigrant. She is a director and photographer. Her work aims to uplift, center, and celebrate Black culture and people and the joy and light that it exudes. Her work is a reflection of the morals, values, subjects that she holds dear, and she uses her camera as a vessel for honest communication between her subjects and the world. Please welcome to the webinar today, Racine and Linda. Woo! Hello. Now it's small talk because I'm done. People are done listening to me talk.
Thank you.
They're
wonderful.
What an absolute joy to have all three of you blathering on with me today. So yay! let's get down to it. So I read all of your backgrounds for everybody, but
Beautifully.
why? Well, I'm sorry, the Tigger had to come out because that was just that's joy right there, right? Joy. But
Yes.
so okay, then we'll start with you, Hope. So was it like you popped in, like that was it? You were done. Was that like your first? I am now getting sucked into the vortex of theater at 5 in my teens watching Cats.
That is how I got sucked into the vortex of dance.
Okay.
And then I different types of dance. I love it all. I love it all. Any kind of way to communicate non-verbally, I
Mhm.
jumped into. I love that. Wanted to be able to communicate with different people that didn't speak the same language that I did. And music, dance, that unites us all. Um, and then I started singing, and it scared me to death. I was terrified in choir, singing solo. I love singing for myself and with an ensemble, but to sing by myself, my stomach, I would have really bad, like upset stomach just thinking about singing. And after a while, I was like, this is my gift, all of this, the arts, I can use this. And once I realized, like, oh, it's not about me, truly, about everybody else and getting it out there. And that really stuck with me.
Awesome. How about you, Racine?
Mhm.
Ooh, I am like from a musical family, so like on my dad's side, all my aunts, uncles, all of them sing in church and things like that. And then my grandfather was a musician for years and years and years, so it was always around me. And then just Black Caribbean families very theatrical just in life alone. So I feel like we were doing theater without even knowing about it, imitating everyone, doing skits and running around the house. And then I just found it. I always was looking for it in school. So I always found theater somewhere. For some reason, it just felt like home. And I kept doing it over and over and over. And then I found directing at college my freshman year after we used to do a 24-hour play festival where they put up a series of plays in 24 hours. And to be honest, I was like, I don't want to learn lines in 24 hours because I would like to sleep. And I don't categorize myself as a writer, so I'm going to let them do that. But I was like, okay, I guess I'll direct. That seems cool. We can figure that out. And then I did it and I never stopped. I was like, it was like a huge click, of the machine that finally started getting it moving. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing. Because I came in as an actor and I thought acting was going to be, the path. And then I found directing and I was like, oh, this is what I've been thinking about. This is what, when I asked myself, is there more? This is what it was all along, because I always had these pictures in my mind of more that I wanted to do just outside of like a piece I was acting in. And so directing helped me find that I can do that. I can help create these pictures and meet all these collaborators and help bring the story to life. Um, yeah, so I'm happy to keep doing it for as long as I can.
Right. Cool. All right, Linda, your turn.
What was the question? I'm like lost in everybody else's.
How did you get sucked in? What was your getting sucked into the vortex of theater or dance or the performing arts?
Well, I started as a little girl. I was always very dramatic as a child. So
no.
Once I had a touch of it, I was put into a movie about Elizabeth Seton, who started the Sisters of Charity at the age of about 10 or so. And it went on from there. I never let my mother rest unless she put me in every class in the world from the time I was 10 years old. And I just kept going with it because
awesome. Yeah. Sometimes it takes one thing and then you're like Racine, you're like, click.
Oh, yeah. It was at the age I knew which direction I was going to go, no matter what direction everybody else tried to pull me. And I nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Right.
be an artiste.
Mhm.
Ooh.
An artiste.
So we're gonna jump right in. Not that I don't love talking about yourselves with yourselves. So the one of the impetus for the Expand the Canon series, right, is to expand our idea of what a classic theater is, or a classic story is. Not a classic theater. We are a classic theater. What a classic story is, and it's to, for me, it's finding, not just finding. It's my responsibility to advocate for those stories that have been silenced, that have been neglected, that have been forgotten. That right suddenly are like people are like, oh, I didn't know about. Yeah, well, we didn't look that hard. To make a seat at the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pick a marginalized community, whether it's people of color, whether it's women, well, whether it's LGBTQIA plus. We could keep going, right? But the reason that this particular play drew me was I happened to find it not long after the riots started after the murder of George Floyd. And what I found startling, and it shouldn't surprise me, was that it was written in 1916, but it could have been written last week, right? With the exception of something that I will address later. So that's what drew me. But the opposite side of that within the story is how I started this webinar. There's so much joy in this family. There's so much love. There's so much pride in being Black, regardless of what, right? And inside that house that we don't see outside the house, right? So, sorry, I have a cat who's about to jump on my shoulders. I'm just warning everybody now. So what is it? I'll start with you, Racine, because I started with you specifically picking a director. What speaks to you? What spoke to you when you read this play?
Very much like you said, the duality of the joy and the pain that comes through this piece. And even for me reading it, I had to confront and like deal with the uncomfortability of myself for the things that come up, because we obviously know about the world outside. I live in this Black body every day. I've seen what's happened, and lived in it at the same time. And so seeing this family and the loving family, I thought it was a beautiful opportunity to show, like, we get to see the inside of a Black family, when both dealing with the oppressive world outside, but also like dealing with one another, and the love that flows through this household, and I really love how they help one another and they love on one another. And being able to see that in a Black family, on stage, whether it's on stage of production or a stage reading, even getting to hear it, really drew me to like it drove me to find the joy and to lean into the joy and the love of the loving family. And then one thing really is the children. I love the kids, between little Martha, little Nancy, and Jimmy. Like, the kids really have a strong presence all throughout this piece. They drive a good chunk of the joy in this piece, and it's so it is, what is the word? The word is escaping me, but it spreads, like, as soon as Jimmy enters, all of them, all of the loving, Tom, Rachel, and Mrs. Loving, like, just feel all of it. And so yeah, so between the kids and finding the joy and then navigating through the pain, but also seeing the strength of this family, took me on a really beautiful journey. And I was very much, I feel like, I'll speak for myself, but I'm guessing for the rest of us as well, like, where's this piece been? Like, I've never heard of this piece. I've never heard of Angelina. It sent me on a deep dive into who she is, and the pieces that are coming during this time, and how radical this piece was to show a Black family in this way. So I'm very grateful for this piece. It helping me find all those things and confront some things and find the joy and hold on to the joy. Was very inspiring while working.
Awesome. How about you, Hope? Sorry, this is sorry. This is Bandit, everybody. I thought I'm giving in. There's no point in trying to keep him up. So what even from the first time you read the sides, then, and this will be the same question for you, Linda. So, and then you can expand to it. So when the first time you read the play. So what drew you about the sides, and then what expanded for you when you read the play?
Well, I love the timeline of it, just the difference in Rachel in those 4 years. So I had sides from when she was a little bit younger and the sides when she was older, and reading them both, you could see the drastic change, but it also was extremely relatable to myself, just years of college, seeing my joy of like, yes, I'm fresh and new. And then, having that beaten down, and then, seeing the world really for the first time and seeing that, yes, I am a Black woman, and wow, not a lot of people love that. And not that I didn't deal with that when I was younger, but it was in such a different way.
Right.
Such a different way. But also knowing that I'm not alone in a lot of my thoughts. That was very big with this play. I won't go too far into that, but
right. Yeah.
I felt seen. I felt very seen.
Good.
Heard.
Yeah. Linda, how about for you?
What draws me to this is I'm a artist that loves to do period pieces and relate them to the present moment. And it's important in these classic pieces that people listen to the language, understand the world of it, and how it has not changed. It is still the same history. It makes a historical circle. As the saying goes, history continues to repeat itself. And in this piece, it continues and continues to repeat itself. I like also classical pieces like this and period pieces like this, where you can relate it to your present day structure, your present day person, that who you are, the difference between the character that you're portraying and people that you've seen in your own life experiences. It's very important to draw those two together so that your audience, in listening to this, can really understand the historical value of the piece.
Okay, great. Let me actually piggyback that, and I'm going to go back to Racine. So that was actually one of my questions: was how do we make this a 1916, right, an early 20th century piece that has some language that we don't necessarily use anymore, and songs, right? Hope has to do the bulk of the singing. So, but how do we make it accessible to an audience in 2022?
I think that it has to do a lot, like, for me personally as the director, making sure that actors understand what they're saying. It was doing a lot of research about what the phrases are, what the wording means, so that things are clear. That was the first goal was to make clear work, knowing that it is 100+ years later, so that the actor understands what they're saying, and then to interpret it for the audience to understand what they're saying. And then the grand idea, kind of, Linda, what you said was that the overall arc and piece and idea of this show is not dated. It's not a dated idea. So the audience's mind doesn't have to stretch that far, because it's still happening. It's more the language than the idea. So making it clear for the actors as much as possible so that they can then make it clear for the audience the approach I took to make it the most accessible, so that the audience is in it with the actors and not just like, sometimes you go to see a Shakespeare show and you're like, these are all words I've never heard before because they're hundreds of years old. So yeah,
Cool.
definitely
So,
the language.
yeah. So I was going to say, Hope, do you want to add anything too? Because I think we all. It started with actually what you said, Hope, that how it spoke to you was that you felt heard. You weren't alone. It was, so I don't know that it is that big of a jump to make it accessible, because it's only 100 years old, but it could have been written 200 years before that, right? Or last month, and it would still, right? We'd still be heard. We would still be seen, or at least start to feel that way. Is there anything anybody wants to add to that? Because that was a lovely cyclical thing that we all just did.
Just tagging on the language, it wasn't the language itself, the vocabulary, terms, anything was difficult, the big words, it wasn't anything like that, but the thought process of the writer. And the playwright is a poet too. So you have this beautiful, the full aria, and you have to find the song within it. But really quickly, growing up in a neighborhood where I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. I always had that thing of you have great diction, you speak so well, and it was always a surprise to people. And this, I've always wanted to do classic theater, classical pieces, and this is a lovely, I get it, I can understand it. I love the language of this piece.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it can be difficult.
I think another important thing to note also in this piece, all these people were educated.
Yes.
They're very, they're professionally educated. They went to school. They went to secondary school. They just can't find jobs in their fields.
Right.
And I think that's really, really important that they realize that it's not a big deal in this world for people to speak the language the way it should be spoken.
Right.
Yes.
And not come off as people who just came from the South, or they're just, breaking out of slavery. This is a whole different language. Right. It's a whole different language, and it's important that the language is spoken the way it is written, the way she heard it when she wrote this piece.
Right.
That these people are educated people.
I think
so they know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think when I listen to you in rehearsal, the biggest thing that pops out for me is that the lack of conjunctions, right? I mean, or not conjunctions. What am I? I
know what you're saying.
Right, because everything is separated into it is, they are.
It is written in full.
Right.
Yeah. And even you have Ma Rachel, when she becomes older 4 years later, you have a point where she's correcting Jimmy on his language. She's making sure you are out there speaking properly. They are teachers, and they are they break I love, Linda, exactly what you're saying. This piece breaks a lot of stereotypes that were formed in the time and that are still continuous to this day, of that Tom, they can't find a job, not because they're not educated, not because they're lazy. It's not them. It's not us. It's not the family. It is the world outside that is putting up very clear barriers in front of them. So it's beautiful because it takes off the stereotype that then takes off the justification that the oppressive world on the outside gives for the way in which they treat these characters in the outside world as well.
Right. It was contractions, everybody. It's the word contractions.
Contractions, yes. You were thinking conjunction junction.
Thank you.
What
That's
Jill
exactly.
mentioned.
I could not get that song out of my head. Okay, so let's continue a bit on that theme. So, what this is going to be a twofold, but you can answer it as one if you need to. Is there a line of joy or pride in this play that sticks out to you, or because you are already headed down this path, Racine, is what about this particular piece or working within this particular creative team has been inspirational to you? Now I'm going to go first because I can answer like a smidgen, because Amy, our stage manager, brought it up the other day, and until she brought it up, it did not occur to me, because I had to think back to the one and only, what I thought, entire Black show that I ever worked on was not actually entirely Black. It was like 75-20. I'm like, oh, okay, no. So I think this is also my first experience of working with the entire, this entire creative team of an entirely Black creative team, which is frightening that it's taken this long for me to say that. But that's kind of cool at the same time.
Hey.
So, right? It's very excited. Anyway, so whoever wants to start answering those two questions. So is there a line of Black joy or Black pride that sticks out to you in this show? And or coupled with, what about this particular piece or creative team have you found inspirational? Anybody can go first.
I was just going to say, I love joy. Thank you for bringing joy. She brings me joy.
Awesome. Good. Anybody else? Linda, Racine.
I think so far as, I mean, I don't want to get too religious about this, but I think the inspirational thing, and which is also a thing that is in the Black culture, especially with females, they have a strong relationship with God. However, whatever that entity is for them, whether you're Buddhist or Catholic or what have you, they have this strong relationship with God. And in a piece like, and especially in a piece like this, Mrs. Loving is everything she is questioned about, her faith, her why she did certain things. It circles back to God is instrumental in guiding me. God is instrumental in seeing us through. We were given the tools from God to do what we have to do. So God is basically driving this piece, this world in which Rachel comes from. And she is very steadfast about that. And I won't do a spoiler alert, but where one of the characters questions that entity, she won't have it. She will not have it.
We get to see the beauty of the generations, because you have Mrs. Loving, right? The mother who's, like you said, the steadfast, and holds her faith, brought her through so much. It's brought her through so much, and then we also get to see Rachel and Tom, the siblings who are in their young in their 20s, early 20s, and then Jimmy, who is 7, and the little kids who are like 3 to 7. And each of their relationships and how their faith wavers and comes in, comes out, and where God stands for them. He's never he never disappears, but it's very beautiful as far as how it flows, how God flows for these characters. Definitely.
Yeah. What was so let's we'll skip to the technical side. Stage readings get 26 hours to rehearse. You get to speak to it first, Grace. What have these struggles been for you as a director?
What? Never, none. Struggles?
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. No, I'm going to reframe the word. What challenges have you come up against? Not struggles. And yet. No, I'll do that at the end. What challenges? What's been your biggest challenge, or put them in order, of directing? An ensemble of 7, right?
Yes.
With 26 hours, and we're not done yet. By the way, we're not done rehearsing yet. But
I know.
what are the biggest hurdles for you so far?
They're the obvious. Well, I won't assume that they're obvious. So, scheduling is always, because we have so many beautiful, multifaceted artists and students who have other priorities as well. Scheduling and making sure, especially based on what characters are playing and what scenes are happening, scheduling so that actors get time to say these words out loud. And work through these scenes has been a challenge, but I will say one that has been beautifully resolved almost every time, because how flexible everyone is. I think flexibility has been like our word of the process with Karen and I. How flexible everyone is. I can say one of the challenges as well is like space. And being able to work in the space in which the performance will be held for a brief amount of time, and then kind of working in hypotheticals for actors when we're working in another space, as far as like, in your mind's eye, this is what it will look like, but I know once you get there, it's going to feel very different, because you have to adjust that different of where we've been working versus where the performance will be. But those are like the main two things that pop out, which are like, logistical things that happen with theater. We know what happens with theater. So those are the main things. But like I said, everyone has been so beautifully flexible, and it's just like divinely worked out every time something has come up.
Cool. How about you, Hope? How many? Okay, get comfy. How many? Sorry. What challenges are you finding working on this particular piece, which can be emotionally hard, and yet joyful, but trying to negotiate that for yourself in a 26-hour time frame?
Making sure that Rachel is understood, and that I am creating this arc in which everybody is understanding, what she is going through mentally, what all of everything that she's taking on, and it's affecting her mentally and physically. But also for me to not take this home with me in my Black body every night. To find that separation, because there's not a lot of separation other than, time frame. There's nothing happening right like this week. There's nothing, well, no, not nothing huge in the news. That is far from the truth. But directly to me this week, I get to work with children of all different colors during the day, and they re-energize me every day, and then to come home and just be able to take this off, separate, and that, and the music of this piece, the salon songs, and not having a piano, like, is not the only really difficult thing.
Right.
Just learning the music for the show.
Okay. How about you, Linda?
Could you repeat that again once
Why don't
more?
you take notes for crying out loud? What's
I
wrong with
get
you?
caught up
Anthony?
in everybody else's answers, and I
know,
forget.
right?
You know,
Also got all tongue tied.
What are you, because you directed the last reading and it ended up being completely on StreamYard, rehearsals and all. So what are you finding for yourself as an actor at this time? Because we actually get to do it in person and partially on Zoom because of scheduling. So what's different for you this time as an actor? Just speak to the actor part for
I
having 26 hours of rehearsal.
okay, that was it. I actually don't find the challenges that happen to me is if I can't make something, if I can't make it happen. I don't really, when I see challenges, I find another way quickly to especially in the short period of rehearsal time. I try to prioritize what is important to get across in this piece. First of all, what is important, and what's important to me is the language, and that I deliver it the way it needs to be delivered to be heard. That is always a challenge for me because I have, especially in a short amount of time, I can say that would be a challenge. I have to quickly find what in the language is driving what my character has to say, and what is important in the language that I'm speaking for the character that I'm playing. So yeah, and like Hope, I go in and out. I will do it during rehearsal. I will do it during performance. After I walk off stage, it's done deal. I've done that for a number of years. I mean, I've been performing for a long time. So I kind of know and help guide others in taking off the mantle of a character or not taking it home with you, except when you have to do a little homework and then you got to set it aside.
Right.
For your sanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can
So
add to that. Oh,
yeah, go ahead. No, please.
Just like going into the research of this and other pieces, I think that's the hardest part because you're like, this is the history. This is what it was. This was in response to an event that had happened in our country, and then you go into that, and then you start reading about this, and that's when I think is the hardest to really remove yourself before that first rehearsal, second rehearsal.
Right.
And you really got to take a step back.
Right.
And also, it's
down the
important.
rabbit hole, that's for sure. Yeah.
Also, it's important to find the things that are not given to you by the playwright. I think that's terribly important. For instance, in yesterday's rehearsal, before yesterday's rehearsal, I did research on, okay, Act 1 takes place here, and the second act takes place here, and the Act 3 takes place here. What day is it on this particular day? So I Googled it and said, what day was October 16th, 1916? What day was October 16th, 1920? And that kind of leads you also, allows you to continue this world as to what day it is. Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? Is it the end of the week? Is it a Sunday? That also influences how the language is delivered and how that world is designed. Right. It allows you to explore what does a day look like in 1916 on a Friday.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
What I was thinking of, because somebody has a line in the play that says, you know, you're aptly named your last name. Why do you think Angelina chose this family's last name to be Loving?
Because it is a loving play.
Right?
I think it's it's not as simple as that, but that's as simple as I can get it, because the first thing Racine told us, we have to find the joy in the characters. We needed to bring the joy, find out why these characters, what is the joy in these characters and not the tragedy of it. Because you cannot play tragedy, but you can play joy and allow it to be sympathetic to the tragedy. Tragedy is something that is difficult to bring to the table without something else, another form or another word to add to that tragedy. Because anybody can play tragedy. I mean, you just, you start crying, you gnash your teeth and the whole bit. But can you bring joy to that tragedy?
Right.
Which
Absolutely.
continues yet another conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to add something? Please do.
Yeah, absolutely. I second everything. Yes, absolutely. Like joy is, I found in a lot of theater involved, especially like with Black bodies, Black people, about Black stories, always goes towards the pain first. And then I look at my family, I look at, my friends, and I'm like, we've been through as a collective, we personally have been through so much, have been through a lot of pain. And through the through line I see always is like, my mom has this saying that she says all the time is like, if I don't laugh, I'm gonna cry. Right. And I think that's rooted in the culture as far as like, I have centuries of pain that I could easily weep every day until I die about. But we choose joy. And I think that is a through line that needs to be brought back out. And then going off of your question, Sharon, about why their last name is Loving, going back to earlier when I said that, like, this piece breaks a lot of stereotypes. And I think that what is being seen in that time and how Black people and Black families are being represented in that time, loving was not something that was shown or nor advertised. Not to saying it wasn't there, because look at this piece, very evident there, but it was not showcased and it was not prioritized. And so I think having the last name Loving roots this family very much in what their principle is like, yes, we have that world out here. Yes, we have these problems in here, but love never disappears in this group.
Right.
Love is always there. They have love for themselves, love for each other, and then like the scene, the line that you were talking about, love for other people, love for other characters that we will meet in this piece. So it's beautiful that their name is Loving, because each time you see it on your script, it reminds you what the root is, what the core is of it all. Every time you read, every time you see your line pop up, it lets you know.
Right. Yeah. It's and it's right. There's love is a noun and a verb. So it permeates. It does. Like you were saying, Racine, it permeates everything. Right. There's a different kind of there's a filial love. There's a love between a mother and children, adopted children, children and children. Right. Your neighbor and so many different kinds of love, and you don't get that. You get the stereotype, right? Whether it be drugs or laziness or bad speech or undereducated or in jail, or pick one. We could go on for a very long time, right? But the absolute opposite, right, of respect with love, and even down to teasing, right? Everybody has a family dinner like that, right, where we all sit and tease each other over, right? And you're like, oh, come on, stop, just stop it. And then you start back up yourselves, right? Because you're like, Mom, she's touching me. Oh. Right. And then it just, But again, the joy in that, right? Because you all know that this it's like your ritual, and that's what you do because you can't help yourself. But it's also,
it's always out of love.
Right.
It's never malicious. It's always, it's how.
And also,
yeah, go on. That was it. That was the end.
Yeah.
And also credit to the playwright, which also makes this another classic piece. In tragedy, there's always the playwright is always mindful that the audience needs to take a breath. You cannot be a constantly relentless. The audience needs to breathe. And that's what I love about this piece also, and which makes it a classic for me. When I'm doing tragedy or something that's completely very dark, there's something in there that gives the audience a chance to go, oh, you know,
Right.
gives them you got to give that to the audience, or else they are just exhausted. Your players are exhausted. They have nowhere to take a breath.
Right.
And I think it's very important that playwrights have that in their plays. That
Especially
are
with
this.
Black body.
Yes, exactly. You have to
Right.
give them a chance to breathe. Got to
Right.
give or take a breath.
So let's actually keep going. I think we're headed sort of in this direction, because so I think everybody knows now this play is written in 1916, right? But
No.
right? Knowing full well, right, that this hasn't existed in any of our. It wasn't in my theater program. It probably wasn't in your, right. So not okay. So where do you think, from where, even 2 years ago, do you think that we'll just stay within American theater? Is it headed in the right direction? Right? Or I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate because it's been brought up, and rightfully so. Fantastic. All of the new plays on Broadway are by Black writers. That's great. It's also during a pandemic, so they can't possibly fill up a theater to know, right? So, right, is it right? Is it going to be seen as a failed experiment because it didn't, right? And does that mean that we are now going to backtrack? I'm just asking for hunches here. I am not like a fidelity person. I don't, do stocks or Bitcoin or anything like that in the world of American theater. But it's a legitimate question, right? Just because everybody seems to be getting on a bandwagon of, well, it'll be okay if we just put everybody, if we do it all at once and then we'll
So the status quo.
Right? Do you see what I mean? So do you think are we headed in the right direction? Or is it too much too fast, especially when we're looking at Broadway? Should it be more incremental, even though we've been waiting a ridiculously long time? What thoughts? Anybody? Otherwise, I will just keep vomiting here.
First of all, let me say it was a long time coming. It should have been this way a long time ago.
Yes.
And to all of a sudden throw all this at once, you're setting yourself up for failure, because it's not taking the time to make sure that what you're doing is able to be successful. If the people that you're also putting there in the forefront, they haven't completely been vetted, to me, it looks as if it's like, okay, that person's of color. Okay, they wrote a play. Let's put them up there. Let's not vet them in the way that everybody else is vetted or used to be vetted. Let's just throw it up there and see what sticks. This is the wrong message to send. I think the premise is good, but it's doing it in the wrong form. It's doing it in the wrong way. And it shuts everybody out except who you're focusing on.
But it's also putting up people against each other too.
That's correct. It's not making it fair. It's not making it fair. So that's exactly right, Hope. It isn't fair. To me, it's not fair. As Sharon and I have had this conversation many times, I don't start conversations. If you want to continue the conversation, I'm good with that. but I'm not starting Jack with you because it's been, there's too many starting the conversation. If you don't get it in 2022 by now, I'm sorry for you. I'm not going to be your teacher. But because now all of a sudden, okay, we got this person who's of color and we're just going to throw them in. I don't want anybody doing that with my career. Ask me about my background. Know about my background. Don't just put me in something because you need somebody in the room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I was, Sharon and I have had this conversation several times. The best thing about it, I'm a triple threat. I'm a woman of color, and I'm a woman, and I got the stuff to back it up. So I know when somebody hires me, they're not just putting me in the room because I have to be in the room. I can back it up. And that's where I think that this is not fair the way it's being done on Broadway. I think it's structured for failure.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
I've said that.
Sorry, I couldn't.
What I've said this in rehearsal. Yes, and but also no. This would be my response to that, in the sense of yes and to the opportunities being made, but also no to the fact that off of what you were saying, Linda, picking people up and dropping them in a space without correcting your space first, because now you are putting me in a harmful environment in which you are not invested in my success or my growth or my safety. That's a big thing. And then, as well as what I have noticed and seen, is you're putting me on the stage, yes, right? But, and I think Sharon, we talked about this as well a while ago. You're putting me on the stage, Black stories on the stage for white audiences. So you've changed what you're producing, but not who you're producing to. So then if there's a harsh line, a harsh slash that cuts out what you're truly trying to do, because bring us into the theater then, if you say that you're making work for us, or shifting to change, then change your audience as well.
Make it accessible.
Make it accessible to the people who have not had access to it in the past, right? So at this point, yes, we're making strides and Black people are getting into the building and staying in the building and taking charge, but also there is more. And I feel like there's another thing with specific non-POC, non-Black, if that said, also we can like white theater as well, that when it comes to a Black person, a Black body, a POC body, all of a sudden it's real difficult. It becomes very hard, and now it's a challenge to do, right? Now it's a challenge to, we have never advertised to that community before, we don't know what that looks like, or now it's a challenge to change your advertising, now it's a challenge to stop saying certain things and stop doing certain things. When you implement changes like that, when it just becomes like when it's a baseline change of a theater. So not taking, like, we have made strides, but they're very small strides. So sometimes I'm like, don't pat yourself on the back yet.
Right.
Don't pat yourself on the don't celebrate too early. Why are you celebrating when you're now doing the bare minimum of what we asked? This was expected. Yeah. This is not a bonus. This is what the baseline should have been. Right?
Thank you.
And it's, if you're exhausted from doing the baseline, imagine what we are exhausted from doing it before we even had access to it. Right? So I think yes, but also no is my response.
Right. Yeah. Because it feels exactly like that. Well, but look what we did. Yeah, and
you should have done that.
Right. Yeah. Right? So
and not remotely equal, but it's the same kind of thing. And I've done a few, and thankfully, but I was happy to do the play. But the seemingly sudden all female concept, I'm like, why is that such a bit?
Right.
I mean, obviously not remotely the same thing, but along the same lines of, right? Because women are we're just trying to get toes in the door as well. But look what we gave you. But okay.
It's also you don't see the Black people or Black bodies until the product is being prepared. So shows are being selected,
right,
for Black people to be in by who, right? It's like, oh yes, this is what, we're making change. And it's like, well, who told you that this is what Black audiences and Black actors wanted to see or needed in this moment? Because that's how we go back to, it's easy putting Black pain on stage and not the joy, right? So bringing us into the room from the beginning of the process, not just when you need someone to say the line.
I just love that the saying, it's not for us without us, by us.
I like that.
Absolutely. And you have to work the whole. Your audience is just as important as what you're putting on stage. And if we're standing up there doing or performing in a production and it's an all Black play, we're speaking to us alone when it's just a white audience. We need to bring that other entity in to the table also, so they can see.
Right.
This is not, the so-called Chitlin circuit, or this is what classical Black theater is. This is what you haven't been taught or trained in your schools. Make sure that audience is peppered with not just a white audience. And then what?
Right.
Who are you going to have the conversation with?
Right. Yeah.
But
So
with that all being said, I'm so happy that we are moving in this direction. There are more Black bodies.
Sure.
And congratulations to everyone, because they're paving the way even so.
Yeah,
exactly.
Still our history.
Bring back the joy, so we can that work is for not us, other folks to do, right? Yes. And since we're in this moment, to celebrate each other as well, because it's hard. We've made some strides. So celebrate us, and then they can do the work.
Exactly.
Keep going. Keep going.
I hear that. Does anybody want to? We're getting close to wine. Stop! I have another cat over here who's just like harassing me with her paw. Because I'm not. I have 4. That makes it look like I have 8. No, I have 4 cats. Sorry. Does anybody want to? Any last thoughts about why? Because this is building on the conversation that we were just having. Why should somebody come see this play? This one on Sunday, 2 and 7 at Road F. Hi, I'm going to plug it now. This Sunday at 2 and 7 at Road F in Levy Hall. Why should people come see this play? Catherine. Right? Why? What is it? Right? We've been talking about Black pride and breaking stereotypes and joy that balances the pain that we are all well aware. And if you're not, why should people come see The Loving Family?
What
Sunday?
You just said, Sharon.
To come
what
see
you
all
just
that we've
said.
been talking
To
about.
see all
get
that.
a piece of the loving. Get a piece of The Loving Family.
Get a piece of it. Enjoy the joy.
Yeah.
Truly.
To hear the language, to hear the tragedy, to hear the joy, to hear the loving within the family, to chase away those stereotypes continually. And there's more plays out there like this.
Right. They just
they just haven't been brought to the forefront.
But who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? When
Yeah.
else are you going to get the chance to see something like this in Pittsburgh?
That is correct.
That's one of the hardest parts and one of the best parts of the job that I have. There are so many things to choose from, and I don't even note right, and I have just barely, I mean, the floor is littered with plays, but I have just started, right? So, like, there is
And be really cheesy and say, expand your canon.
I like that.
There you go.
I like
Maybe we
that.
should change it. We're not
Expand
going to call
your
it
canon.
expand your canon is what we're doing. So I'm just saying. Do you want to trademark that?
Hey, listen.
Take it for somebody else.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
We're copywriting it right now. Nobody else can have
Alright.
it. Just saying, because it's recorded. So
It's
that's
recorded.
our copy right now.
I love it.
Signed.
Yes.
All right, I have a bunch of plugs to do, and you two have to get back to rehearsal. You have to head to the rehearsal room. When I'm done signing off, I will head back to the rehearsal room.
Do we have any other?
Linda, Hope, and Racine, I cannot thank you enough for well, one, thank you. Flexibility is key for taking time out of the rehearsal day to come and talk with me, and hopefully to whomever decides to watch this webinar in the next 2 days or over the next year, however long it's on the website here. There's me plugging our new website. Thank you very much, picttheater.org. Yeah, so thank you for your time. Thank you for your generosity of your thought. Thank you for being open to be discussing difficult questions. Just thank you. Thanks, and ever thanks. That's all I can say. So I will see all of you in about 20 minutes.
Or so.
All right, everybody. Yes, winding up. Catherine started to put things up there. So let's start at the top. Please visit our new website. It's gorgeous. It's easier to navigate. It's beautiful. PICTtheater.org. Very easy. Please come see Rachel by Angelina Weld Grimke this Sunday at Rodef Shalom Congregation at 2 and 7. Reservations are required because we're still working within, that pesky little pandemic. You can get those reservations at our new website, PICTtheater.org. Please, the gala, come celebrate 25 years of PICT Classic Theater. It will be from 6 to 10 p.m. on Saturday, March 19th, 2022, in this beautiful room at Carnegie Science Center. Information, see what I'm doing here? On the website, picttheater.org. Finally, please come see our next stage production, which is the classic Endgame by Samuel Beckett. You can find ticket information, and some of you are going to get tired of me saying this, on the website, picttheater.org. And upcoming as well will be our last two Expand the Canon series staged readings, A Bold Stroke for a Wife by Susanna Saint-Livre and The Black-Eyed by Betty Shamia. But yes, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your patience. Enjoy your weekend. Please stay safe. Come see the show on Sunday, February 27th. I think that's it. Take care, everybody. Thanks for taking the time.